have sound here? We got sound. Shavua Tov, Miriam.
Shabbat Tov. That's it?
What
That's the whole crowd?
is the crowd? I know it's a waning crowd. We gotta. I don't know. We'll see if anyone else comes. But tomorrow, what's the story tomorrow? Since this might be the same crowd.
It's the same for the next year.
Okay,
I have class from 7:15 until 10:15.
okay.
So evening is better for me.
Okay, so we'll say 7:30. I mean, I'll put in the
Okay,
chat in,
okay, that's
in the
fine.
evening. Rosa loves that time too. Okay.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter to me. I mean, some evenings if I can't make it, we'll talk about it. But tomorrow is great. So let us learn because I do have to run, but we'll
Yeah,
finish
so do I
tomorrow.
actually.
Okay, so he said he got up to, so I'd like to start from 9 lines from the bottom on Chet Amud. So this is a tough sugya. Turns out Bava Kama is pretty tough if you haven't caught on yet. But
I keep on saying this is not my favorite, but it looks like there's a lot that are not going to be my favorites.
it is tough. What can I say? The more you learn it, the easier it gets. But that's
Of course.
true. So we had a long discussion yesterday. Shavua Tov, Robert. So we had a long discussion in the last few days about what you collect from. Right? It was a very complicated thing because unlike today, where it would be pretty straightforward, everyone would get money. So all these discussions are really not so relevant. Right? Back then, they didn't use money standardly for things, and we'll see why. And then you mostly collected from property, from value. And there was a lot of ways to evaluate things, right? If I owed you $1,000, I could give you 1,000 cucumbers or $1,000 in cucumbers or $1,000 in beautiful flour or $1,000 in a field. And then there's good fields and there's bad fields. There's apartments. There's apartments in, in a nice neighborhood or in a bad neighborhood. So all of these questions came up. So we are at the 9 lines from the bottom of Chet Amud. Last word on the line, you got it? Amar Abaya. Says Abaya, this is in the context, I can't go back through everything we did yesterday, but in the context of yesterday, Reuven shemachar sadeh l'Shimon ba'achrayut. So Reuven goes to Shimon and says, I want to sell you this field. And Shimon says, well, I'm happy to buy the field, but I know that you're a person who borrows a lot of money. And I'm afraid that someone's going to show up tomorrow and say, they lent you $100,000, and this field was the guarantee. And they're gonna take the field away from me, and I'm gonna lose all my money. So Reuven says, look, I'm gonna sign a guarantee. Achrayut means like a shtar that says, even if they come and collect it from you, I will pay you back. Okay. Now, why you think Reuven is gonna have money to pay him back, I'm not so sure. But this, is an extra, we call it title insurance nowadays, right? So you buy it with the ability that even if it gets collected from Shimon, that Reuven will pay him back. Says the Gemara, says Abaya, Ata balchov Reuven v'taraf Shimon. So of course, as Shimon was worried, a week later, a guy comes and says, "I've got to take this field from you because I lent Reuven $100,000. Here's the shtar. He never paid me back, and this field is the debt." Says the Gemara, "Dina hu da'azar Reuven u'mishtai dina bahadeh." Reuven can get himself involved. Now, you might have thought Reuven has nothing to do with this, because the Baal Chov, let's call him Yehuda, comes to Shimon and says, I wanted to collect the field. Reuven's not a party anymore, but Reuven is a party. Reuven can come and can say to the Baal Chov, the Yehuda, I paid you back. I dealt with it. Let me find the records. Let me deal with it. The Motzaei Amarle, the Yehuda, the Baal Chov cannot say to him, Lav Baal Dvarim Didiyat. I'm not talking to you. You're not my business exchange here, because I'm not asking for you to give me money. I know you have no money. I'm going to Shimon to take your field. Why to Amar Le? Because what Reuven can say is, look, I'm the party to this exchange. Because imafkit mine, if you end up taking this field from Shimon, he's going to come back to me because I gave him insurance, right? Alai hadar. He's going to come back to me. And so therefore, I really have a vested and a personal stake in this outcome. And I can come and present proofs that you're wrong. Now, some say 4 lines from the bottom, even if Reuven has no responsibility. Let's say Reuven sold the field clear to Shimon, saying, Shimon, you accept any responsibility. I'll give it to you for a great deal, right? People do this all the time. You buy things that are probably stolen or probably owed to somebody else, like Amazon, it's what it's called. You get a good deal, right? You know that you're taking that into consideration. Even so, Ruvain, so you would think Ruvain has nothing to do with this. Let the Baal Chov come take it from Shimon. Ruvain's not going to have to pay him back. Right? Says the Gemara, no, Reuven can still say something. Why? Because it still is negative for Reuven if Shimon hates him, right? Or has claims against him. Taramot is, ta'anot, claims against him. Because Reuven says, I really paid back this loan. I don't accept that I have that this person can come and collect, and therefore he has a stake in the claim. Amar Abaya, 2 lines from the bottom now. What about a case where Reuven Machar Sadeh Shimon Shelo Ba'acharut? Reuven again sells the field to Shimon. Shimon knows that Reuven might have debts. Reuven, it's not clear what happened. Reuven denied them. Reuven said, I paid everyone back. Reuven said, I'm going to pay everyone back. But there's no achrayut, meaning if they collect this field from Shimon, Reuven has no responsibility to pay him back. Okay? Now, Rashi and Bava Motzaei actually discusses what's going on here, but let's just assume that they haven't yet exchanged money. They have like an agreement that Shimon's going to buy the field from Reuven, okay? Before Shimon goes and pays Reuven, guess what? They announce this in the paper, and some guy raises his hand and says, wait a second, Reuven owes me money. I own that, need that field. So Shimon hasn't yet given the money for the field. Says the Gemara on top of Daf Tet Amud Aleph, Yatsu alav asikin. People come and say, wait a second, before you buy that field, Shimon, Reuven owes us money. Says the Gemara, this is Abaya again, before Shimon has made a chazakah in the field, again, Rashi assumes, it's a big debate, Rashi assumes that it means that he didn't pay money yet. But if he hasn't yet owned the field, meaning a chazakah in a field, remember, is not lifting a field. You can't do that. It means living there, right? Going in, moving in, plowing, using the field. So if he has not made a chazakah, yachol lachzor bo. He can just go back to Reuven and say, I changed my mind. I don't want to buy this field. It turns out that it's a bad deal. I'm not paying you money. But Misha hichzik bo, but once he made a chazakah, ein yachol lachzor bo. Shimon can't back out of the deal. Now, what's going to happen? Shimon is going to have to pay Reuven. It's shocking, right? Shimon's going to lose the field to the creditors, and Reuven's never going to pay him back. So Reuven got a pretty good deal here, right? Because my taima, the Amarle, because what Reuven can say to Shimon is chayta de kitri safer to accomplish. You got a sack of something, right? Rashi says chayta de kitri means a closed sack, right? A sealed sack. It's like when you go and you buy the mystery gift, right? You don't know what's in it. You bought this, you accepted responsibility, you know that I might owe it to someone. It turns out that you didn't realize it was going to happen so fast, right? You thought you might live on it for a couple of years before someone showed up, but that was the acceptance. You were a kona it, and therefore you accept responsibility. Says the Gemara, when is that time? What is called a chazakah in a field? Says the Gemara, a very interesting answer. We use this very, very often. Michidayish amitzri. From when you walked around and you made marks on the borders, right? Once you show up to the field and you said, okay, I want to stake out where this is, you haven't even started planting yet, you don't live there yet, that's considered to be a chazakah, because you would never do that in someone else's field, right? You would never walk into someone else's yard and start laying out plots of land. So once you've done that, you are considered to be a chazakah. Says the Gemara, 4th line from the top, v'dafka shalom v'achrayut. So this whole example is where you bought the field, Shimon, from Ruvain, without any achrayut. Avo ba'achrayut lo. If you bought it with achrayut, you cannot go back, right? And this is how Rashi understands it again here. It's a big machloket too. But that even in the first case, you can't go, once you agreed to buy the field, even if you haven't made a kinyan, right? You haven't paid the money yet, and someone shows up and says, wait a second, Reuven owes me $100,000. I want this field. Shimon has to pay Reuven the money and then go through the legal process of getting the field back. Because what's then going to happen is, the person's going to collect the field from Shimon. Shimon's going to go to Reuven and say, look, I paid you money. You have to give it back to me. Reuven will give back the money because he has insurance, but you can't back out of the sale. But Ikad Amri, some said, exact opposite of what I said, right? Ikad Amri, I'll say it now in a second. Some say that even afilu b'achrayut nami, even if you accepted achrayut in the field, right, then you still can't back out of the sale. Why? The Amarle, Reuven can say to Shimon, I know I owe you money. And I know that I have responsibility. Meaning if the field is collected from you, then I'm going to have to pay you back. And this guy just came and made a claim that I owe him $100,000. He's going to collect the field. But a claim is not the same as a legal finality, right? People make claims all the times. Maybe you'll go to court, you'll find out that the shtar was mizuyaf, that the shtar was false. You'll find out that you have proof that you already paid it back. So basically what the Gemara is saying, according to this pshat, is that you have to go through the legal system, right? Let him come grab it from you and I'll pay you back. But it's not like you can cancel the sale. We have to go through the regular process that you would go through in any kind of case. Okay, so that is the conclusion for now, at least. Thank you, Miriam, for you, it'll be the conclusion for now of these complicated cases of how you pay back. Okay, so we're going to take a pause. We'll get back there, don't worry. But we're going to take a pause. If you recall, though, the Gemara is taking us back now 2 dapim ago, to Daf Zayin, when the Gemara had a question. Rashi points out, we just got a little sidetrack. But the question on Daf Zayin was that the pasuk says that when your shard damages someone, you pay back mitav sadeh, right? Your best field. And this is how we got into this whole discussion. What's the best field? Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yishmael, the whole last 2 dapim. But then the Gemara asked the question that it also says kesef yashiv l'ba'alav. You give back money, and we said that's the Rabbot shop that you give money. Now, I don't understand, is it the best field or is it money? So we got this whole discussion a couple of days ago about how to reconcile those two things, right? Says Rav Huna today, 8 lines from the top, as if you're smack in the middle of that thought. Oh, kesef, oh, meitav. The way you reconcile these psukim is that you can either give the best quality field or you can give cash. You have a choice. It's not one or the other, as we answered before. So that's how Rav Huna explains those psukim. Eitve Rav Nachman l'Rav Huna. Ask Rav Nachman to Rav Huna, what about, and this was the question we had earlier, Yashiv, we learned before, the pasuk says Yashiv is an extra word, l'Rabot shaveh kesef. You can pay back even not money and not fields, but you can pay back subin, afilu subin. Subin are like oats, right?
Bran.
I'm not sure what bran is. That's why I said oats. But bran is the bad part of the grain, right?
Not necessarily, because they make cereal out of it. Yeah. So
and they thought it was the bad part back then. Maybe now.
Oh, maybe back then. Okay.
Right. The good part of the grain was the sola, it was the fine flour.
I see.
The hard, the undigestible parts, which people today
eat
better, right? It's animal feed, basically, right? So the subin, meaning I can go to you and say, I'm giving you, bad, again, it has to be the right value. It's not like I can cheat you out of money, but I give you the lower quality, what we consider low quality grain. So
but
how does that
I don't understand what, why Rav Huna said that you can pay back with like a superior land, because didn't we say yesterday that a Baal Chov you pay with like the Benonit?
So this is talking about nezek, not Baal Chov. This is when you cause damage.
So, okay.
Remember, damage you pay the best. Right? If your shor causes damage, Baal Chov is Benonit, but nezek, mazik, you pay idit, you pay the best. So let's say my animal damaged someone. I owe them, $1,000 for damages. I can either pay $1,000 of the best land or $1,000 cash. That's kesef. Okay. Ask someone, what about this? The Braita said you can pay back $1,000 of bran, which is neither of those, right? Says Gemara, it's talking about where you have none of the other. You don't have any money. You don't have any land. So you pay back with something else. Well, pshita. What else you can do? Not pay him? Right? No, I might have thought that the person who caused the damage, who owes the $1,000, has to go and get cash. Aminale, that we would say to him, Zil tarach zavin v'aiti the kesef. Sell your brand on the market. You deal with the, eBay. You get the money and then bring me the cash. Kamash Malan, that you don't have to do that. If this is all you have in your possession, you can pay back with shaveh kesef. Amar Rav Asi, said Rav Asi, ksafim arein kekarka. That cash, kesef, is like land. This is where, what's the implication? In what context? If he's telling me that when the Torah says you have to pay the best, that means land, but you can also pay money. That's exactly what Rav Huna just said. So now, of course, Rav Asi can agree with Rav Huna, right? But it says Gemara, he should have said v'chein amar Rav Asi, right? If Rav Asi is saying the exact same thing in different words as Rav Huna, we should have said, and Rav Asi agreed. So it must be he's saying something totally different. He's referring to the following case. Shnei achim. You've got 2 brothers whose father dies and leaves them his property. Shechalku, right? The father died, he left an estate of $1 million. And he has $500,000 of cash and $500,000 of property. So they split it. Natal echad karka v'echad ksafim. One takes the cash, one takes the land. And of course, a month later, or a year later, or a day later, or 500 years later, a debtor comes and says, wait a second, your father owed me money. And so remember, if you owe money, you can collect from likuchot, from the karka, right? From the land. So ba balcho v'natal karka. So now one brother is got left with nothing, right? Because his karka was taken. Says the Gemara, what happens? He goes to his brother and says, that really didn't belong to our dad. And he takes half of the money because he got nothing. And obviously he was owed before the father died. So it already was out of the parsha, as they say. And so he owes him, he gets half the money. So that's when we say, o karka, o ksafim, that you get one, meaning if you lose your karka, you get to pay back with ksafim. This is my pshita. That's obvious, because what are you going to say? Hi, brava, hi, lav, bro. This one's a son, this one's not a son. Meaning, why would you treat one differently than the other? Some say adarabba. No, it's actually telling you the opposite. It's telling you the other way. That in fact, you don't have to go back to the other. The other brother can say, tough luck. You chose the field. When you chose a field, you understood that there's a risk in a field. A risk in a field is that a field is permanent. And so if anyone ever comes to our family and has claims, they're going to take the field, right? Damar le lahachi, he could say to him, lahachi shakli ksafim. This is why one of us chose to take money, right? What's the negative of money? Di mignavi lo mishtang amna minach, right? Let's say one brother, Reuven, takes the $500,000 in cash. And the next morning they rob the bank and they steal all the money. Right? He can't go to Shimon and say, the $500,000 I got from our father was stolen. I want half your field, right? Because money is able to be stolen. Fields cannot be stolen, right? You can't walk away with someone else's house or their field. And so there's a benefit in money. There's a choice that's it's a lesser thing with money that it could be stolen, but that's what the responsibility you accept. And lahachi shaklit ara, therefore some people take land, but the negative of land is di mitrafa lo mishtalim nelach, right? Minai, that if it's taken from you for a debt, I don't have to make you whole again. And therefore, according to this pshat, it's not the case. If brothers split an inheritance, one gets land and one gets money, and the one who gets the land loses it, the one who gives the money doesn't have to pay him back any responsibility. That's what you accept. Ella, this is the case. The case is Shnei Achim Shechalku. You have two brothers who split up land here. In this case, they both have land. Uba Balchov v'natal chalko she'achad. Each one has a property worth, say, $50, right? We'll pick it simple. And a Balchov comes and says, your father owed me $50, and he takes one of the fields. So they're both fields now. It's not kesef, right? With cash, it would be different. But with two fields, so now what we're saying is, well, karka is like safim in the sense that the other brother has to give half of his field to his brother, basically, to rearrange the Yerusha. It says, but that's not halachically true. We've discussed this case many times before. No, not many times, but we've discussed this case before. But Amar Rabasi Chadazimna. Rabasi already said his opinion. So it is true, but it was already said. Itmar, what's this case? Ha'achim were around 10 lines from the bottom at the star. There's a few stars, but the achim, there are brothers. Chalku, they split land that their father leaves. Again, I'm going to keep the case very simple. Father leaves an estate worth $100. One brother gets a field worth 50. The other brother gets a field worth 50. A debtor comes and collects one field. So one brother's got nothing. The other brother's got his everything, right? And the brother, Rav says, but the machloket, which is a funny use of the word machloket, but it means the chalukah is batal. They start all over. Go back to the drawing board. Their Yerusha was not split properly because really they had land that was not theirs. Go back and redo it, okay? And meaning they'll each get 25 of what's left behind. Shmuel said, viter. Shmuel said, no, tough luck. That's the way it is. You did what you did. You got your portion. You got unlucky. You lost it. Rav Asi says, and this is why we're quoting it, because Rav Asi seems to just say the exact same thing, Nota revia bekarka v'revia b'ma'ot, that you get a quarter of the karka, or this is the simplest way to read it, which we're going to do tonight, because it's Daf Yomi, and you get a quarter of money. Meaning, in my case, I'm going to keep it very simple, though it's oversimplified. The Yerusha was $100, right? Each brother got 50. the 50 from one field was taken away. Reuven's field was taken away. So now Shimon has to give Reuven a quarter of the Yerusha, 25, right? Which is half, basically, either of his land or through cash. He can buy him out. And that's what Ravasi said. Now let's read that in the Gemara. Rav Amar Batla Machloket, because that the Yerusha, the splitting was split up, was canceled. Because Kasavar he holds Hachim Shechoku Ki Yarshilavi. The brothers who split a Yerusha, they inherited it directly, and therefore they reevaluate it when the year comes, when the land goes away. It's like they bought it. It's like you bought it without responsibility, and so therefore, basically, you lose your rights. And Ravasi says, you get a quarter of the value either in karka or in money, because Masafka, he's not sure whether they're Yarshim or the Kuchot. So therefore, you get a quarter, but you get it either in karka or money. So it says, so clearly, when Ravasi said that karka is the same as money, he didn't mean this halacha. He already taught us this halacha. Ella, go back to what we said before. My harehen ki karka. When Ravasi said money is like karka, lingin meitav. It's saying that in terms of nezek, when someone damages, and the Torah says you got to pay back the best is the best karka, or you can pay money. Yachi hainu de Rav Huna. So that's the exact same thing Rav Huna said. You're right, Ema. So you should change the gersa, and it should say v'chein amar Ravasi, and we solved all the problems. Right? Ravasi said the same thing as Rav Huna, which is that the Torah says that when you damage someone, you pay the best land, and that's true, but you also can pay money. Money is the equivalent, essentially, to the best land. Amar Reb Zera Rav Huna, last line of the daf, the mitzvah ad shlish. It's not clear what this connects, we'll see. When you do a mitzvah, you have to spend up to a third. Just what, a third of what? My shlish. Turn the page on daf tet amud bet. Ilema shlish beito. You mean a third of your estate? Right? That if I got to go buy an esrog, I got to pay up to a third. If I got to buy tefillin, some people do this, you got to pay a third of all your money for your tefillin. How could that be? Right? It's Ella Mayata. What are you going to say? It's Rami leitlata mitzvata. Let's say 3 mitzvot come in your lap at once. You got to do a tefillin and a lulav and I don't know, and Shabbos. Later, l'kula beita, you give away all your money. You got nothing left. We obviously are not requiring you to give away everything. No, it doesn't mean that at all. It means hidor mitzvah ad shlish b'mitzvah. Let's say you're talking about hidor mitzvah. Let's say you have to do an etrog, right? The basic etrog the kosher etrog costs $30. You are supposed to be mahader the mitzvah if you can afford it, right? If you can't afford it, you buy the $30 one, if that's all you can afford. Let's say you have $1 million. The expectation is that you pay a third more to get something nicer. Right, so you should add to $40, let's say in that case, or $45, depending on Mila Gav, Mila Bar, to get a better esrog. The same thing is true about your Sefer Torah, or your Tefillin, or whatever mitzvah you're buying. So you should pay a third more for something that's more beautiful. Boy, Ravashi asked that question: is it shlish Mila Gav or shlish Mila Bar? Remember, the way we do percentages is a third within. So if you have a $30 esrog, a third is $10. Or a third is a third of the total. So if you have a $30 esrog, a third would be a third of 45, meaning $15 more. So we're not sure. Teku. He does not have a resolution of that question. B'marava Amri, now in Eretz Yisrael, they used to say, Mishmei de Rebbe Zera, ad shlish mishalo. Look, if you pay up to a third more, that's your own, you lose your own money, meaning it's on you. You spent your money, you chose to spend it for a mitzvah. You might get credit for that, but you lose the money, basically. You spent your money. But mikan ve'elech mishal HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But if you spend more than that, then God will repay you back. Meaning, if you end up paying even more, we guarantee you, I'm not sure I would try this at home if it was your last dollar, but we guarantee you that God will make it back up to you and you'll get your money back. So, but the basic requirement is that you're supposed to spend up to a third more to do a better mitzvah. That's the end of that discussion. Says the Mishnah, I'll keep going. I have 5 more minutes. We can do it. Kol shechapti b'shmirato. This is an enigmatic Mishnah, as we love nowadays, but we'll explain it all. Anytime you are chayiv to watch something, let's say you have a responsibility to protect something, it's your animal, it's your bar. Then, hichsharti et nisko, then you have been machshir, you have prepared the nezek to have to pay, right? So if you have to watch the thing and it causes damage, that means you have to pay for it. Okay, we'll see what this means. It's very, very unclear. If let's say you are supposed to be responsible for part of it, then chavti b'tashlume nisko. Then you're chayiv for the whole thing. Again, the Gemara will discuss the whole thing. Kachshir kol nisko. Nichasim shein behem meila. Generally, you have to pay if you damage things that are not chayiv in meila. Remember, we said earlier that it's reyacha, your friend, and not hektish, right? If you damage a shar of meila, you don't have to pay. And it has to be nechasim shel b'nei brit. You're only chayiv for damaging things that belong to other Jews. And it has to be nechasim and miyuchadim, things that are owned by people. They're miyuchad, not hefker. And b'chol makom, anywhere you damage something, any place, chutz, no, we're saying that, of course, for the exception, chutz mirashut hamiyuchadet the mazik, except for your own field. If you have a house and something comes and you have a bar in your field and something walks into your house and drops in your bar, it's not your responsibility. They shouldn't have been there, right? And also a reshut hanizak v'hamazik. And we'll see again what this means. A reshut that's owned by both the one who caused the damage and the one whose thing was damaged. In all of those cases, kishhizik, if you cause damage, chav hamazak l'shalem, l'shlumi nezek u'meitav haaretz, like we said in the first Mishnah. You have to pay the damage with the best land. Says the Gemara, Tanu Rabbana. What does this mean? So we're going to try to expand on the Mishnah. Kol shechavti b'shmirato, anytime that you are chayav to watch something, you're responsible to keep something secure. Hichsharti et nisko, then you are responsible for the damage it causes. Ketzad, what's the example? It says the Gemara, we're talking about a case where you gave your object someone to watch who is not able to watch it. Let's say you gave your shar to a 6-year-old, and you said, can you please watch my cow, right? Says the Braita, shar ubar, shemasran l'cher shotav v'katan. You give your shar or responsibility to watch your pit to a minor or a shota or a cherish, right? And hiziko, and they cause damage. Then you're chayav l'shalem. You have to pay. Masha'en came ba'esh, but it's not true. The same is not true by esh. Well, what does that mean? What do you mean it's not true by esh? If you do you hand a torch to a 5-year-old and he walks and he burns something with it, you're not chayav? B'mayaskina, what are we talking about? Ilema b'shar kashur, where you gave an animal that was tied up and you said to a kid, can you watch this for me? I got to go to the bathroom. Or bar mechusa, or you have a pit that's covered. You said to a kid, protect this, don't let anyone uncover it. The kavate gabe, what's the equivalent to that by ish? A coal, right? Something that's not actively flaming, but can easily become a flame. Kachelet, right? And let's say you handed a container with a coal to a kid, and you said, don't let anyone take this, or don't blow on it, right? So why would you be chayiv in one case and not chayiv in the other? What's the difference between the two? You're negligent in both cases. Ella must be talking about a shar mutar, a shar that was untied, so it's ready to rampage. Ubar migulet, or a pit that was uncovered. The kavate gabe eish, what's the equivalent by eish? A flame, a torch, shall heaven, right? So now what we're saying is that if you gave your cow or your pit to a minor to watch and it caused damage, you have to pay. But if you gave your eish to a minor, you don't have to pay. Why? Mashen came eish to pater. Va'amar Reish Lakish mishmei dechiskina. This is really getting into a discussion that we're going to have to continue tomorrow. But Reish Lakish very clearly said, Lo shanu ela shemasu lo gachelet v'liba. The only time we say where if you give a fire to a minor and it causes damage that you're pater is if you give them a gachelet, you give them a coal, which again is not yet active, and he blows on it, right, and makes it, or she blows on it and makes it into a big fire. Aval shall hevet chayav. But if you actually hand a minor a flame, then you'd be chayav, right? My taima to have bari hazeka. This is very important terminology. Bari hazeka means it's likely to cause damage, right? Handing a flame is causing trouble to a 10-year-old, a 3-year-old kid, or even some older kids. La'olam, says the Gemara, you know what the case is? Bishar kashur. The Mishnah is referring to you went to a child or a cheresh or a shota and you said, my cow is tied up. I want you to watch it. I'm going to come back in an hour. I'm going to get lunch, right? Or it's a bar mechuseh. And the kavate gabe eish gachel. The equivalent that your putter by eish would be a coal. And says in Marat Ka'amrit, so you said earlier, what's the difference? There is a big difference. The difference is that shar darke lintuke. A shar, naturally, if you leave a shar tied up, it's not going to stay tied up forever, right? It's going to fight and eventually get disconnected. And a bar, darke linture, right? A bar also, the things don't stay covered forever. But gachelet, what happens with a coal? What happens if you wait over time with the coal? It gets less and less potent, and it goes out eventually, right? Gachelet kama deshavikle ma'ame me'ame v'asa. The more you leave it, the less potent it becomes, and therefore with the coal, basically your responsibility is lower than with the shar. Because with the shar that you leave tied up, you still have to watch it, right? And the fact is that you left it with this minor means that basically you still are responsible for it. And if it causes damage, you have to pay. But a coal, basically you left it in a state that won't cause damage. This kid made trouble and made it worse because he blew it up or something. And you don't have responsibility for that person did. Again, we're going to discuss this tomorrow, but you don't have responsibility for what that person did. And therefore you are putter for Aish in that case, even though you're chayav for shar and chayav for bar. And we are going to stop here because I do have to run. So tomorrow we're going to pick up Rabbi Yochanan, which is 10 lines from the bottom. And we are meeting tomorrow. I don't know if you can make it, Robert, but we're going to try to meet in the evening at 7:30 p.m. again.
I'll try, but if I miss it, I'll catch the recording.
Okay, perfect. We'll keep that in mind. Shavua tov, everyone.
Shavua tov.
Good night. Thank you.